I'll come up to the Mishnah on Chaf Beis Amid Beis. Chaf Beis Amid Beis. I'll call Kshem Lichter Ves Get. Everyone is kasha to go ahead and bring a get. Everyone's kasha. Afilu Cheresh Shoyt Lichter Ves Get. Everyone's kasha to write a get. Afilu Cheresh Shoyt V'Katan. Even a Cheresh Shoyt V'Katan, which is tremendous chiddush. Since they're not b'nei das, how in the world could they write a get that has to be written lishma? Second in the Mishnah, Aisha Kaiseva says Gita. A woman can write her own get. V'yish Kaiseva Shayvra, and a man can write his own shayver, his own receipt. She'ein kiyam I get elav chaysamav. Because the bottom line is, since the kiyam of the get is in the chaysamav, right? That's the how you ascertain the get through the chasima. Memela, it would be okay. So that's the latter part. It's going on the latter part. The she'ein kiyam I get elav chaysamav is coming to explain why an isha can write her own get, because we go after the chasima and a man can write a shayver. Now, the question is about the first part of the Mishnah. How in the world can a cheresh shayt of a cotton write a get? V'hala b'nei deya, says the Gemara, they're not b'nei deya. And says Rashi, the bottom line, v'layadu lichtay l'shma, and they don't know how to write l'shma. In other words, if you wouldn't need l'shma, if you just need things on a piece of paper, then a cheresh shayt of a cotton could ostensibly write it if they know how to copy over something. But since it has to be written l'shma, right, then we're going to have three terutzim to this kasha, okay? And then really the Gemara, basically Gemara to the Mishnah is to answer this kasha. First teretz. Amrav Huna, v'hu shehaya goydol omer al gabav. When do we say they can write a get? Is when an older person is standing on top of them. Says the top Rashi. V'omer loi, and the person who's standing over the cheresh shayt v'katan tells them, chasiv litzorich pliny. Write for so and so. The Kesava Rav Huna, Masnisan Rebbe Eliezer, because Rav Huna is of the opinion, our Mishnah is according to Rebbe Eliezer. Again, we've gone through Rebbe Eliezer, we've gone through this by now. In the Masechta, you don't know that Edi Masira Kati, Edi Chasima Kati, then you didn't open up the Masechta. So, according to Rebbe Eliezer, that the Edi Chasima Kati, what's the Lishma going on? It's going on to Ksiva. And according to Rabbi, who says the Ede Chasima Karti, what's going on? It's going on the Chasima and not the Ksiva. So in other words, this kasha, Labnei Deyanin, was really not such a kasha like Rabbi Meir, since Rabbi Meir is of the opinion you only have to go after the Chasima. But since Rav Huna gives the opinion that God loyim al gabav, in other words, we have to be machsha the Ksiva, says Rashi, al korchach, you have to say he's going according to Rebbe Laza that Edi Masira Karti. Continues Rashi. The boy ksiv l'shma. The sefer the kama shen kiyim haget elab chaysamav kasha, right? L'chayra kiyim get is only b'chaysamav. If it's Rebbe Laza, what do you mean that the kiyim is in the chasima? If like Rebbe Laza, the kiyim should be in the what? In the ksiva. Hainu edim mesira. The Roiv Gitin nimsarim b'fnei achoismim, because most of the Gitin go before what? The one that the mesira go after the signers. The Gitin. In other words, the signers go after the nimsarim, after the person who give it over. It's going in the middle case about the woman writing the get, and that's going in the ratio. So it's not going in the first case. It's going on the second case. It's going on the second case that a woman can go ahead and write the get, and he can write the shayver, and therefore we have pshat in the Mishnah. Okay, so the first pshat in the Mishnah. Hakol I get. I feel a cheresh shayt of a cotton. We have the chesaron of what of not blab b'nei dinner with a god loyim al gabav. If you have someone going ahead, staying on top of him and saying, "Write this for so and so," so it's pshat. But the hesber is they're doing the physical ksiva, and the person saying it is instilling in it the lishma, or they're listening to the person themselves and they're providing the daya in the person themselves. Whatever the lumdis is, they would work like their opinion of. Okay, Amar Rav Nachman, Elamiyata. According to this, if you have God loyim al gabav, Oivi kechavim b'Yisrael oimer al gabav hachanami dekasher. If you have a goy or Yisrael that is oimer al gabav hachanami, that it would be what? It would be kasher. You have an Oivi kechavim. You have a goy, right? And the Yisrael is standing on top of him, and he's telling him to go ahead, what, and write. He's telling him to go ahead and write. That will also be good, right? That will also be good. If you're going to say einachinami, it would be good. Tanya, we have a brayso that says pasal. And for the Gemara, in the words of Shlomo's father, in other words, if it's Yisrael that's telling the Cheresh what to do, the Cotton what to do, clearly what we know he's doing it for the purpose of facilitating the Ksiva Lishma. But a guy, you don't know what's in his mind. You can't read his mind. We're not mind readers. So therefore, einachinami, it would not be good. Only because what? You don't know what he's. If you knew for sure, I don't know how we can go ahead and qualify that, but if you knew for sure that he was telling you Lishma, it would be good, right? But in this case, it's not. So it's possible. Hada Amrav Nachman, Lav Milsahi da Amri. Pirish. A goy would be good. The teretz that I just gave you is nishkain teretz. In other words, if you're going to believe Gadol Omer al Gabav works, it would work even if it's a guy. Why? Fellas, you know when we learn Gemara with the Mishnayos is broken up, we can view Mishnayos very often. We say a Reisha and a Seifa. The Reisha is one Mishnah, the Seifa is another Mishnah, right? Look at the Seifa of this Mishnah. It's on our page. Hakol ksherin lehevias a get. Everyone's kosher to bring a get. Chutz michereshoita v'cotton v'suma v'oived kechavim. Now go back to the Reisha. If a guy was puzzle, shouldn't it say Hakol ksherin lichtoi ves a get? Chutz michereshoita v'cotton v'suma v'oived kechavim. Obviously, by the fact that you don't mention Oived kechavim in the Reisha, only in the Seifa, it must be Oived kechavim. Would be kosher to write the get if a god loimer al gabav. If no, that's true. In other words, so you want to give a teretz Rav Huna, it's speaking like Rebbe Laza, and god loimer al gabav, good. And now we're asking a kash on you. If that's the case, a guy should also be good. And you want to give a teretz to say guy is a to the nafshe. Says Rav Nachman, no, that's not a good teretz. It's not a good teretz. You know why? Because it's muchach from the Seifa of the Mishnah that the guy is puzzled to bring the get, and we didn't mention it in the Reisha. It must be Lini Kasiva. The guy is muta. The guy is kosher to write it. So therefore, we have to come up with a different teretz. We have to come up with a different teretz. Why, in fact, is a cheresh shaitim cotton okay? Why are they not good? Why are they not good? So I'll tell you tomorrow. It says here's the reason. So Hadam Rav Nachman lav milsahi da'ami menachemol midika pasalei lavid kechav linyan haba, as we see in the Reisha of the on this page, on the Seifa, excuse me, that a guy is can not bring it. Nechlal, we can infer delin ksiva kasha, right? And our Mishnah says that a guy could write a get is according to Reb Meir, who doesn't need ksiva, only chasima. In other words, you're right. But Tanya, okay, guys, so we have a teretz. We have a teretz. Hakol. Why can't Hakol ksherin lechtem as a get? I feel the cheresh shait of a cotton. Why can a cheresh shait of a cotton write a get? Why are they what? What? Because they're what? Because they're what? I think I'm wrong pshat. I think I'm telling you wrong pshat all along. Hakol ksherin lechtem as a get. I feel the cheresh shait of a cotton, right? Hakol ksherin lechtem. No. So no. Ksherin lechtem as a get. I feel the cheresh of a cotton. So goy must be puzzle, no?
No, because it's not listed in there.
What's that? I think I told you wrong shot. No, I'm listening. I mean, the puzzle. No, it must be he's kosher. In fact, because if it was puzzle, so he's kosher, right?
Yeah.
He's kosher. So I told you right shot. Okay. So now, so what's shot now, guys? So let's go one more time, guys. Outside. So. If you're telling me that a guy is kasha and they're also kasha, cheresh shait of a cotton is also kasha, right? So how? It must be loy remeya, because loy remeya, what do you care about? The chasima. You don't need the ksiva to be lishma. So lazim shraibin, let them write. We don't care. Let them write. We don't care. Let them write. So tell them to go ahead and write, and that would work. So that's what Samara is saying right now. Let them go ahead, write, and let them work, and everything will be okay. Okay? Says the Gemara. How could you say that a guy is good and let him write, but Tanya become puzzle? He Rebbe Lasahi. That's Rebbe Lasa. Don't make Masira Karti. Ubeini Kasiva Lishma. So we have two pshatim in the Mishnah. We have Rav Huna, Gadloim al Gabov, Loit Rebbe Laza. We have Rav Nachman. The Mishnah is Rebbe Meir. We have a brisa that says the guy is puzzle. That's Rebbe Laza. The same teretz as Rav Huna that you need a ksiva lishma. Good. Everything's good now. Okay. Fred the Gemara now. On that. Now this is like a new Gemara. Rashi points out that don't get mixed up. This is a new Gemara. Amar Rav Nachman, Oima Hoya Reb Meir. Reb Meir would say, Afilu matzah b'ashba. We had this earlier. Even if you find the get in the garbage dump, it's got your name, your wife's name, the same city, and it's and now you take it. Chasma, you sign it. The nasnala kasha. I feel the rabbanon will be kasha. It's kasha. But that's the statement. Now, Esvei on that statement that what? That you don't only chasima, you don't need kasiva lishma. Esvei Rav Nachman. It says v'chasav la lishma, and we dashin lishma. My love kasivas haget. When it says v'chasav, it must be kasiva, not chasima. Like chasima seidim. Esvei Rava kol get shenichtav shaloi l'shamisha. Any get that's not written l'shamisha, right? And it says nichtav. It's got to be written l'shamisha. Mashma that what? That ikar is the ksiva. Says the Gemara, Ema shenechtam shaloi l'shamisha pasal. It was signed shaloi l'shamisha. It's pasal. Okay. Esvei kishu kaisvei, when they write part of the get, kilu kaisvei lishma. If they part of the get lishma, it's kilu kaisvei kulishma. It's like you put the whole thing lishma. My love kishu kaisvei l'toyrif lishma. When you write the toyrif, that's the name of the man, woman, and right, and the city. Kilu kaisvei l'toyfis lishma. It's if you wrote the boilerplate lishma. So you see the ikawad is the ksiva. Like kishu kaisvei lishma kilu kaisvei lishma. When you sign a lishma, it's what it's kaisvei lishma. Okay. Be by same another way to answer up the kasher on the one that said the last things that said ksiva. Hani must need some money, Rebbe Lezahi. This that says kol get shenichtav shalom isha. You know that's Rebbe Lezahi. That made him a masira karti. Okay, so that would be sure. So we're still holding by two terutzim, guys. If following the trail that we're going along, with the kasha, how can a cheresh shayt of a cotton write a get? According to Rebbe Laza, the Gadlaim al Gabav. According to Rebbe Meir, no problem. Signing. First teretz is according to Rav Huna. Second teretz is according to Rav Nachman. We asked the kasha on Rav Meir. How can you say a kasima? Kasima, you see, you have a bunch of mishnayos for kasiva. We answered up, changed to gersa, or we finally answered up. Those mishnayos that spoke about kasiva are going according to Rebbe Laza. Rav Meir can argue Rebbe Laza, not a problem. Now, a third teretz to the kasha, going back to the Mishnah. How can you have a cheresh shayt of a cotton, and how could they be able to write a get? Rav Huna Meshmuel. Who sheshaya makama toyrif? The oilam, you know what? Right? You don't need goyim el gabav. The Mishnah is according to Rebbe Laza, guys. You don't need goyim el gabav. What has to be written lishma in the get? The toyfis, the boilerplate, or the toyrif? The toyrif. Good. So very good. You know what they wrote? Hakol keshen lichtav a get. They're all kosher to write the toyfis, the boilerplate, right? That they could write. What can't they write? And who's it going according to? Rebbe Laza. And you don't have to set sign that it's speaking about with Gadlaim al Gabam, and that takes care of the problem of a guy. Yeah. Then everything would be nice. Well, safe is more like Rebbe. What? The toyfis, yes. Yeah.
Laser, can I add something, please?
No. Everyone says no.
According to Rabbi Lazar, according to, if you're saying it's holding like Rabbi Lazar, why does the Mishnah have to bother telling you that the first part of the get can be written by a cheresh of a cotton? If everything is Eidei Chasima, it goes by the Eidei Chasima, what's the difference who writes the beginning?
It goes after Eidei Kasiva. You're mixing up kasiva. Rebbe Meir is the one who says chasima. Rebbe Laza says kasiva.
I mixed it up. I'm sorry. You're right. Okay.
Can I give you an answer?
Yes.
Thank you. And the answer to your question, no. Says the Gemara.
We told you not to ask the question. That's not tough.
Yeah, you're right. I should have listened to you.
Let's see if you can listen to us now. You see the mute button?
So, okay, now this teretz, guys, is a refined teretz. This is a refined teretz of Rav Huna's teretz, right? Rav Huna said it's also going according to Rebbe Lazar, but Rav Huna said it's speaking with God Loim Al Gabav. Now it's saying it's going according to Rebbe Lazar. However, it's going to Rebbe Lazar without God Loim Al Gabav because you only need what? The typhus. And they're not, and Taka, they can't write the typhus. They can't write the typhus, like the tyrif. They can't write the tyrif. So, now, so Rabbi Yochanan, Rabbi Zrika says in the name Rabbi Yochanan, Ein Torah, meaning don't listen to him. Ein Torah, my Ein Torah. Rav Abba kacha diacha shein koyach lishma, right? Shein koyach lishma. Since the this we don't care. You're being mizalzel, guys. Who are you allowing to write the tyrif? The typhus, you're letting. You're being mizalzel by letting a cheresh to be cutting in. Obviously, once you're mizalzel to let them write it, it must be the ksiva is not the main part. It must be the chasima is the main part. So this teretz and the teretz is going to according to Rabbi Meir. Okay, so now this is who, right? This is Rabbi Meir. He don't made the kasima karti. So Rabbi Yochanan is disagreeing. He's saying the Mishnah they could write because we don't care about the ksiva, we only care about the chasima. Now, who said this? This is Rabbi Zrika in the name of Rabbi Yochanan. Good. Now, guys, look at yesterday's daf. Yesterday's daf, Chaf Aleph Amid Beis. You see the Gemara? Go down 1, 2, 3, 4 lines down. V'chein Omar Rabba bar Rav Chana Om Rabbi Yochanan v'hu sheshayir makam ha'toyrif v'Rebbe Lazahi. So you see, Rabbi Yochanan holds that what? Eidei Mesira Karti. The Omar Eidei Mesira Karti. So now you have a stira in Rabbi Yochanan. You have two people reporting Rabbi Yochanan. You have Rabbi Srika and you have Rabbi Rachana. So what exactly did he hold? So back in the Gemara now. Fred the Gemara Kasha. Fred the Gemara, how could you say that what? You, Rabbi Srika, say Rabbi Yochanan's of the opinion that Eidei Chasima Karti. I've Omar Rabbi Rachana, Rabbi Yochanan, Rabbi Lazahi. And it's Eidei Mesira. And the Gemara, Amaroy Ninu Balibid Rabbi Yochanan. Rabbi Zrika and Rabbi Rachana were reporting what they heard from Rabbi Yochanan. Rabbi Yochanan was the God Ladar. He was the leading Amoyer in Eretz Yisrael. They come to Bavel. They report in Bavel what they heard. You know, the game of telephone, sometimes, you know, it gets passed on a different thing. So you have two Amaroyim disagreeing what the Amoyer Rabbi Yochanan said. So again, guys, outside, look at me. Atarutz, Akash and Ateretz. The Mishnah. Hakol ksherin lichtevus aget, afilu cheresh shait v'katan. How could they be? I've loved b'nei deu, says Rav Huna, Godloi Mel Gabav. And it's according to who? Rebbe Lazar. Says Rav Nachman, it's Reb Meir. Says Reb Yochanan, two opinions. Rav Zrika says it's Rebbe Lazar. And Reb Zrika says it's Reb Meir. And Rabbi Rachana and Reb Yochanan says it's Rebbe Lazar. That's you threw it into the kasha. Good. And according to Reb Zrika, Rebbe Lazahi, and you don't need Godloi Al Gava because they're only writing the boilerplate. They're not writing what? The Lishma part, the part you need Lishma. Now, the next Mishnah is a bit of a addendum to the previous Mishnah. We already quoted it, and it flows right in. And it flows right into the Mishnah. Says the Mishnah. A kol ksherin lahavius a get. Everyone's kosher to, in fact, bring a get. Guys, anyone can bring a get. Chutz micheres shaita v'katan, v'suma v'oivet kechavim. And we'll see why. Now, in other words, if this is just transport, right? This is just transport, they should be believed. But when you come from Chutzlar, it's by now we know that you have to say Fani Nechtam, Fani Nechtam, which could create problems. Kibul HaKatan v'higdil, the cotton was makabelit, and that when he was a cotton, and then he grew up, and so by the time of delivery he's a gadol. Choresh v'nispakach, he heard, he learned how to hear. Stuma v'nispatach, he was blind, and all of a sudden he had tchias hamesim, and his eyes became able to see. Shleita, he was a Shleita in his Tatva and he became normal. Avikachav in his Gayer, Puzzle. Why? Because since the Tchilasai was all Isser, even that the change took place in the middle, doesn't it? Aval Pikeach v'Nischarish, v'Chazav v'Nispagach. He was in, out, and in. Pasuach v'Nistama v'Chazav v'Nistabach. He was in, he got blind, he got better. Shafui, he was normal. V'Nishtata, he lost it. V'Chazav v'Nishtafai, he got normal. Kasha. Za'aklau. Kosher Tichilasai v'Soifai b'das kasher. Anytime in the beginning and the end is b'das, it's kasher. I mean, don't say dicha. You know, sometimes you say by korban is dicha. Once you're out of the ballpark, you're out. You know, no dicha over here. In other words, this is din shlichus. Once you were in and you can complete the job, you don't say, "Oh, in the middle you were out, so you lost the same shliach." Right? Makes sense. Good. Even though there is a svar of dicha by some things, right? But that's not by shlichus. Okay, now. I can understand why they can't allow b'nei deya ninu. They're not b'nei deya. And shlichus, it says ish, says Rashi. The shlichus ish binyan v'lei cotton. The shlichus nafgalon v'yikach lem ish seh. But we learn from Karm Pesach the base avos echel lekech l'kulan. One takes for everyone. That guy shlichus is you learn from Karm Pesach. That shliach. There's other sources also, but that's one source. And it says ish there, so therefore they're not in the ballpark. Okay. Let's see Rashi. Lavbar heterehu, first white line. The Einlem kedushin, the Ein Gitin noigim behem, ubemidi del nafshi lechazi leimatzi lemevat shtuchusayu lachrina. Something that you can't play the game, right? You don't make the rules, right? You're out. You're out. You're not in. So Mamela, since they're not in the parsha of shlicha of Gitin and kedushin, they're not in the parsha of shlicha. So therefore, I understand chereshet v'kadin. I understand what a goy. Elasuma my loy. Why suma not? Suma is totally intelligent, right? What's wrong? What are you worried about? What happens in Eretz Yisrael? Some saying so. What's the problem? Okay, so you're saying that. So you're saying. So what about in Eretz Yisrael according to you? I'm asking you according to you in Eretz Yisrael. Would the suma be okay? Okay. You standing by that answer? Both of you? Well, yes or no? I intimidated you. I'm intimidated. You should have stayed. No. You should have stayed. You were both right. We have to keep the 99% of guessing. That never made it to the blog, Lenny. I'm a little surprised. So I'm going to say this. You don't know who you took it from until you give it to. So that's the first, in other words. So this teretz would be universal, regardless if you're bringing in Eretz Yisrael. Regardless if you're bringing Chutz La'aretz, since you didn't take it from, you don't bring it to. Maskef la Rabbi Yosef, Heich suma muta b'ishtai. How's the suma able to live with his wife? Heich many adam mutar b'shasem b'layla. How can men live with their wives at night? They can't, right? They can't see like a suma. El, what do we say? B'tfias eina the color. They're able to recognize their coil. The color. So this teretz that you want to suggest, Rav Sheshes. By the way, it's interesting, guys. Rav Sheshes is blind. Rav Sheshes is a summa, right? Rav Sheshes is also blind, right? Rav Sheshes is blind, right? Rav Sheshes is a shmai. I always think this. There's the Gemara in Chulin. The Gemara wants to know, how do you know a pagam in a knife? How do you know pagam? But you need the sakin. How do you know whether it has a pagam? There's a blemish in the sakin or not. So the Gemara gives a deya. Go ahead. You show it in the sun. Put it in the sun. You see the shadow. If you see that there's a little curvature on the ground, you'll see. Rav Sheshes says you have to put it across your tongue. So my son, Hanison said, Rav Sheshes is blind. He couldn't use the shadow method. It was shak shad. So you see over here also, Rav Sheshes was blind, but meanwhile, Rabbi Yosef was also blind. He asked him a kasha. He asked him, "How's your mutter? Beri adam mutar min yishem b'layla. El tfias ain't the color. Hachanam ain't the color. So therefore, memela a suma should be back to the original question. Elam Rabbi Yosef hacha b'chutz la'aretz askina. You know what? We're dealing in chutz la'aretz. The boy lemeimar b'fani nechta v'leimatzi lemeimar. But ein achinami in Eretz Yisrael, the suma would be good. Enochinami, the sum in Eretz Yisrael would be good. Over here, it's speaking chutz la'aretz, and therefore he can't say b'fani nechta. Now, if that's the case, guys, right? if that's the case, what does the Mishnah say? We went through a bunch of different cases. If he was cheresh, if he was normal, became a cheresh, became normal. If he was normal, became a shaita, became normal. If he was normal, became blind, and became normal. According to this, you didn't need him to come normal. You didn't need the lattice stage. As long as he's around for stage number 1, it should work. It's right. In other words, did he see funny nechtam? Yeah. So why does he have to get better? He doesn't have to get better if he's suma. He can remain a suma and still be made on what he saw. And what says the Gemara, Amalei Abayel Miyata, the suach v'nistama, the matziyama, that he's able to say funny nechtam the kasha. Vakatani, the Mishnah stated, Pesuach v'nistama v'chayzav v'nispatach. Kasha, Dafka Chazim Nispatach in, Loy Chazim Nispatach Loy. Dafka, if he regained his sight, yes. Not if he remained blind, no. Says the Gemara, no. Who I didn't have to Loy Chazim Nispatach. And you all can guess the teretz. But I did the Kani Shipa and the Shtata Chazim Nishtafa. Time of the Chazim Nishtafa, they came normal again. Holy Chazim Nishtafa Loy. Tananami Pesuach v'Nisna v'Chazim Nispatach. Even though what? You needed to go ahead and regain the sight, to go ahead and be still testify, to be consistent in the symmetry of the Mishnah. Therefore, we give that teretz. So therefore, going over the Mishnah, why? Because they're not b'nei shlichus ninu. Ovid kechavim, he's not in the parsha of kedushin or Gitin, not b'nei terinu, and a suma, also a suma because he can't say what. B'fanei nichtam, b'fanei nechtam. Mashen ken Eretz Yisrael, he could bring the get. Very good. Okay, Amar Avashi, Dekanami, this teretz that you just gave is also meduyik. Diktani zeh klal. Anything in the beginning and the end was with das kasha. Like a tani kosher tchilasa v'seife bekashrus kasha. Kashrus would mean that you were kosher from the beginning to the end. So why did you learn that? Because you didn't need that. Because the summa, as long as he has his das, is okay, even though he wasn't kosher throughout the process. Right? Shema mino. Boy mi name Ravami. Eved ma'u sheyas shlich l'kabel gedisha miyad bailu. Can an eved be makabel a shliach makabel get mizana? Now, guys, when we speak about an eved, it's important to know. You say every day, shlo sani goy, shlo sani oved, shlo sani isha. Mashma that an eved is more than a goy, and he is. In fact, guys, an eved is mechuyev and mitzvahs kiisha. An eved is mechuyev and mitzvahs kiisha. So we want to know: can an eved be makabel a get for a woman? Now, which eved? Look at Rashi, guys. 2 lines from the bottom. Masha yasha shliach leisha, shliach leisha. Evet shel kol adam. Masha yasha shliach leisha ba'alma. It doesn't mean like for her own, the evet of this particular woman. It means any evet for somebody else. Can an shliach? Stam is like amalgamate a kasha. Can an evet be a shliach lekabbalah? That's the kasha. Can an evet be a shliach lekabbalah? The Gemara is going to bring a raya guys from shliach lehaylacha, and we're going to say, well, if he's in the ballpark for halacha, he's in the ballpark for Kabbalah. Once he's in the shlichus ballpark, we're going to take it through. So that's the kasha. Can he be a shlich Kabbalah? That's the question. But
for the woman, it's not for sure if it's her.
Again, I'm not sure. I'm not. Again, yeah. I mean, but that wouldn't be a shlichus. That might be direct. She's like, something like that, right? Well, she had to be tied up. Anyway, says the Gemara, Amar Rashi, they can okay, Shmaina. Boy Eben Moshe Merami. Eben Moshe Yasser Shliach Kabel Gedi Shem Yad Baila from the hands of her husband. Amalahu midikapasa leila oivit kechavim. When the Mishnah said oivit kechavim and it didn't say Eved, Michal David Kasha. No, guys, we're being medayik in this Mishnayos like Kimin Chaimer, right? It didn't mention. If Oivik Yechav was puzzled ksiva, it would have mentioned it like it mentioned it by Harbar. So now, just like it's being so meduyik, the ones who can't bring a cheresh, shaita, the cotton, the suma, a goy can't bring it, it must be an evet could bring it. Now so you're going to tell me that's a shliach lahilacha. You're going to tell me it's a shliach lahilacha. Look at back on Rashi on the Amid Bay Aleph. For who did nami lahilacha? The bottom line. The chula taimahi, alakach hoisa shela beis hamedrash. Good, that's the shaila in the beis medrash. In other words, Rashi is bothered by you ask shliach l'kabbalah, and now you're being arrived from Shliach Lacha, because they were asking a din is he in the Pasha of Shlichus or not? That's it. In other words, the Shaila happened to be in the Kabbalah. We want to know if he's in the Pasha of Shlichus or not. The Mela, if you push it that he's in the Pasha of Shlichus by Halacha, who had din he be Pasha in the Shliach what of Kabbalah? Amr Vasi, Amr Rabbi Yochanan. Ein ha'eved nasa shliach l'kabel get l'isha. He argues on Rav Ami. The yes Rav Ami comes along Rav Asi and reports to Rabbi Yochanan. Ein ha'eved nasa shliach l'kabel get l'isha. Right? Miyad baila. You can't be. A shliach cannot be. Good. So what's your question now? So why don't you learn it in the Mishnah then? Guys, what's the Shaila predicated upon? What was Rav Ami's proof? Guys, look at me. Guys, what was Rav Ami's proof? Rav Ami's proof that an Eved is in the ballpark because he wasn't listed in the Mishnah that took everyone out of the ballpark. Cheresh, Shoita, Vekatan, Suma, Goy, out. Eved, in. Comes along Rabbi Yochanan, out. Why does he do Rav Ami's raya, right? It's a good kasha. Let's see Taisus. Ein Eved nasa shliach. Vim Taimar. Umasnisa lisni Eved. The Mishnah, let's learn Eved. The kol shekein Eved kechavim. You know what? You listed Guy. If you're telling me an Eved's out of the ballpark, put Eved in the Mishnah, and if he's not a shliach, then certainly a Guy's not a shliach. Rabbi Yochanan le'el zu vein Torah nicha. Light before that'd be good. The not going to kechavim lemeidak l'linya kasiva afilu Eved kechavim kasha. But that even according to the reason why we listed Eved kechavim in the Mishnah, in the second one was to tell me that he's kasha in the ratio. That works out. In other words, what's the kasha? List Eved and not Goy. Like the Lashon that we listed Goy in the Seifa to go ahead and say, to tell us he's kasha in the ratio. So I can understand why we put Goy in the ratio of Haba bringing the get to tell me that what? The reason it's listed in the Seifa is to tell me the din, but in the ratio he would be good by writing the get. So therefore I understand it. But like the Lashon continues Taisus. Ablachlish the Mukha Rabbi Yochanan Rabbi Laza says like Rabbi Laza, and then a Goy cannot write a get. Kashim, go ahead and write Eved can't is not, and certainly Goy. I have to Rabbi Yochanan the Hacha. Vayim Rabbeinu Tam. The Naked Eved Kechavim Lashminon Eved Kechavim in his Gayer Pasal. Afa Pisha Ba'isa Shah Hisa Daital is Gayer. Even when he was makabelit, guys, he had mindless Gayer. That Eved Kechavim Refusa Tfei Niv Eved She'ein Biyadol L'Shtacharer. Right. Hirish. Hisa is asking a different kasha. Hisa is asking, if Eved's out of the ballpark, list Eved not Eved Kechavim. Says the Gemara, you're right. There is a chiddush why we listed Goy. This guy, we said even was Megayer. What happens? He took the get, and all of a sudden, Shina wanted to be Megayer. He was probably thinking about being Megayer for him. So you'd have a Havamina when he's Makabelit, already showing. It was good. What are you going to say by Eved? By Eved also? And when is an Eved in the ballpark? Only when? Yeah, but it's not his. The thing Megayer is beyond that you have the capacity to do yourself. Mashenking Shichra, by that depends on somebody else. Therefore, what? It's a bigger chiddush, right? In Goy than Eved, and that's why we listed. That's why we listed Eved Kechavim rather than Eved. That would answer the kasha. Okay, Geshmak. Okay, back in the Gemara. Okay, so now we have a machlokes. According to Rav Ami, an Eved can be makabel again. He's in the pasha shlichus. According to Rav Yochanan, he's out of the pasha of shlichus. He can't be makabel again. Says the Gemara.
What happened to Mashakana Eved Kanaravan?
Which one? What are you talking about?
How can the Eved ever be Makabelit? Once the Baal gives it to the Eved, it's his. It still is. I mean,
what's the case? That's why Rashi learned it. Speaking in a case, can he Makabel get for somebody else? He's not free. The Eved's not free. Again, Adarabba. If he's Mashakot Eved Kana Rabbi is the reason she should be free. Then she is a shlich leKabbalah. In other words, you're saying Shalom that if he picks it up for her, it should be she's divorced because Masha Kana Eved Kana Rabbi, right?
It's her Eved. It's her Eved.
Yeah,
it's her Eved.
But again, but we don't even need that. We want to know in general: is an Eved in the ballpark? A general shaila, a general shaila. Get a little violent here. Is the Eved in the ballpark or not? Okay, now says the Gemara: Maskif law Rebbe Laza, Taima b'milsa, the lesser. The reason why that the Eved is not he's not getting in the Torah is getting the kedushin. Eina eved nasa shliach kabel get should not be get kedushin. Elazar says the reason why is because he's not in that. But milsa this you're kosher. In other words, guys, are we saying that the eved can't be a shliach, or we're saying the eved can't be a shliach in this particular inyan? What's the lashon of the Gemara? If you she'eina b'Torah getting the kedushin. So in other words, you're telling me that the eved, the reason he's out is not that he's like cherish shoit of a cotton, that he's not an ish and he's out of the ballpark of shlichus. You're saying in this game he doesn't play. If you don't play this game, you're out. The only one who can play this game is someone's who's in the game. You're not in this game, right? Mashma, but in the shlich a game he would be, and he would be a good shlich, right? So can an eved take off truma? Is an eved mechuyev in truma? Mechuyev misses kiisha. So the if he separates truma, be a good separation, correct? Okay, good. Let's see. Says the Gemara. V'ha'oiv this new b'Torah truma. Goy is in the parsha and kuti in the parsha of truma. That nan ha'oiv kechavim ve'kusi shetarmu mishalahem truma say truma. V'tanan ha'oiv kechavim shetarmu shal Yisrael afilu b'shus ain't truma say truma. My time alav mishum dechsiv. It says it could have said atem, but it says gam atem. Ma atem Yisrael avshluchachem Yisrael. In other words, the reason why who's in the ballpark of shlichus? Only who? What is the words? In order to be a shliach, you have to be a Yisrael. Is a guy Yisrael? Is an Eved Yisrael? No. So therefore, it would preclude him from being what? Even in the parish of Truma. It would preclude the Eved from everything across the board. Rabbi Yochanan, you limited it to what? To be Makabel a get, because the Eved's not in the ballpark of Kiddushin and Gitin. Mashma, but in the parsha of Shlichus he is in, to l'chayra, based upon this, that atem Yisrael, afatem Yisrael, that an Eved would be out of everything, even one that he has shaychus to, and even if you take off truma, it shouldn't be good truma, right? That's the kasha. And for the Gemara, Amid bar Rabbi Yanai loy ma'atem b'nei bris afshulchachem b'nei bris. Don't say ma'atem Yisrael, afatem Yisrael. Say ma'atem b'nei bris. Afatem b'nei bris, and goyim are b'nei bris, guys. Goyim, not goyim. This is not goyim. Eved, an Eved. Look at Rashi. Eved is a b'nei bris. Says Rashi. Afshul chachem b'nei bris. Loy ma'atem b'nei bris. Muhulim uboy b'bris mitzvahs. You're gemalit, and you came in the ballpark of mitzvahs. As I told you, an Eved is in the ballpark of mitzvahs. He's also gemalit. Afshul chachem b'nei bris. Lafuke oivet kechavim. Aval Eved ben brisu dichsiv. They were made right. Okay, so now that was their job. So what do you see? So he's held serve. So again, Rav Ami says, can an ever be Makabel get? Yes. Rabbi Yochanan says, can an ever Makabel get? No. Why can't an ever be Makabel get? Because he's not in the ballpark of a goy is not in the ballpark of getting kedushin. And then we said Yisrael, he's not a Yisrael. We answered up, no, it's b'nei bris. So right now we understand. Okay, now continues the Gemara. Same Gemara, but a little kinech. Rabbi Yochanan, Eino Eved nase shliach lekabel get isha miyad baila v'sheina b'toyres gitin kedushin. Now this he's not b'toyres gitin for kedushin. Ba'afa pisha shanino, and even though we learned Hari at shivcha uvladech ben chayrin, you are my shivcha, and your baby is free. In haisa ubra zachsalai. If she was pregnant, she is like for him, and he's free. Mashma, that she's makabel what his freedom, right? Mashma, he's makabel the freedom. So l'chayra, what's going on over here? She's being makabel get shechra for her baby. My imhoisa ubra zachslay. What does that mean? What do you mean if what does that mean? Imhoisa ubra zachslay. Let's see Rashi here. My imhoisa ubra. My inyan shechra etzel get isha. Why does freeing an eved have to get isha? To come afpisha shenino havadi b'torah shahur. Fellas, outside. What was the reason Rabbi Yochanan gave that an eved can't be makabel a get? He gave a reason. She'ein b'torah what? Get kedushin. Could an eved be makabel a get shechur for somebody else? if you're telling me exactly, if you're telling me that all you have to be that he's in the Parsha Shlichus because he's a Ben Bris, and anything he plays the game for, he's in. So what's the chiddush over here? That the woman can be makabel a get for her child? Of course he could. Why not? You can't tell me he's not the Parsha of Gitin Kedushin. This is the Parsha of Shechra. Every evidence in the Parsha of Shechra. Every evidence in the Parsha of being freed. Good? Every evidence in the Parsha. So what did Rabbi Yochanan mean over here? What's he saying over here? It doesn't flow. Guys, he says one din. What's his din? He says one din. He says, an eved can't be makabel a get isha. Good. And then he says, but a woman that's pregnant could be makabel a get shechra for what? For her. Now, what's the big deal? Of course he could. So the Gemara wants to know what exactly is going on. What's the flow of the Gemara? One more time. Says the Gemara. Mayim haisa ubra zachsalai. Ki yasser Rav Shmuel by Yehuda. Rabbi Yochanan. Ki yasser Rabbi Yehuda by Shmuel. Rabbi Yochanan tarti Amar. Rabbi Yochanan said two dinim. What was the first thing he said? Ein o eved makabel isha. L'fisha ein b'toyres gitin v'kedusha. That was din number one. And near in the Varim, Eved Makabel get lechaveroi, miyad Rabbi shel chaveroi. That an Eved could be Makabel a get for his friend from the friend's master. So in other words, Shimon the Eved can Makabel a get for Ruvain from Ruvain's master. You could do that. Avaloi miyad Rabbi shaloi, but he can't be Makabel a get, right, for a fellow Eved. Let's say Reuven and Shimon are both owned by Stanley, then Reuven can't be makabel a get for Shimon from Stanley, because then we're going to say Masha kana ish Eved kana Rabbi. Good, that it doesn't leave his hand. Doesn't leave his hand. Then lashacha adam loymar. And if someone would whisper to you and say, Zu halacha shnuyahi im haisa ubra zachsaloi. In other words, so what are you going to say? Guys, you're telling me the following. You're telling me the following. Ruvain can't be makabel for Shimon when they're both owned by Stanley. So how can the mother be makabel for the baby when they're both owned by whoever the owner is? So in other words, that would be a stira to what you're telling me now. You're telling me, guys, that two avodim, in this case, it's a woman and a Vlad, same owner, you can't be. So if someone's going to whisper you and tell that to you, you know what the answer is? It doesn't work me Torah shlichus. It has a different Torah whatsoever. It's consistent. If Reuven and Shimon are alive in this world and they're both owned by Stanley, there's no way that Reuven can be makabel to get for Shimon. Doesn't work. What's the case speaking about? Here's the case. The imlashacha adam loimazu, and someone's going to whisper you and say, halacha shnuya im haisa ubra zachsalai, and therefore, so you see, you could be makabel for Yavad. Amalai, tell him, shnei gedolei hadar pirshu es adava. Two gedolim explain this matter. Reb Zeir, Reb Shmuel, Rav Yitzchak. Chad Omar Hamani, Rebbe he. The Omar Hameshachra Chatzi Avdoi Kona. If someone frees half of his Eved, the Eved's kind of the other half. The Chad Omar, my timer, the Rebbe. What's the reason? V'hakasavar Uba Yerach Imaihu. The Uba is the Yerach Imai. So now let's view the woman as one part, and the Uba is the second part. The Nasa Kamisha Hiknalei Echame Avereha. And it's like the master went ahead was makna to the woman part of Eivarim, and that's the pshat in the Chad Eivrovi. So in other words, what's Yikasha? Yikasha is how can Ruvain be a shliach for Shimon if the role of the woman is in fact a shliach for the baby? And the answer: the woman's not a shliach for the baby. It's freeing half an eved. You can free half an eved, and therefore it works like you're freeing half the eved. A share is going to be